Hey everyone, welcome back to 7Anubis Aquatics. We're doing our big fish room, fish gallery tour here. And this will be part 2 of this series. We'll go through 3 or 4 more tanks. We'll give you a nice close-up view. We'll talk about the fish, we'll talk about the setup a little bit. So let's go. Alright, fish room gallery tour. Tank number 1 will be the Parrot tank. Probably the most fun overall, super personality having fish maybe of all time. There's some controversy around these type of fish and that they're genetically engineered and this and that, and I don't know if that's necessarily true. I think they're a little bit like mules. They will have eggs and they will pretend to have babies, but they never really do. And most of the time I think it's because the males are sterile. Anyway, they're just a super fun fish. This is a 90-gallon tank. The 2 smaller ones are actually yellows, which around, at least around Colorado, are super hard to find sometimes. But I just love these fish. There's a downside to, having cool fish. Not a lot of plants in this tank. In fact, there are no plants, right? Because these guys will just tear them to shreds. I've tried several different things to get them to not do that, and to have successful planted tanks with parrots is just like beating your head against a wall. It's just not going to happen. Anyhow, super fun to watch. They're usually a little more docile than this, but maybe because they have big eyes, they can see me from across the room, and they think that they're going to get some food. So their normal behavior is just to kind of hover in a big group and just kind of relax, and they take it easy, but they really like to eat. So anyway, the Parrot tank, we'll take a little close-up look. Do have some nice rocks in this tank and some nice wood. I can't hardly stand to not have something. All right, but this tank is really more about the fish and not necessarily about escape. I suppose you can escape by just sitting here and watching them. Yeah, they're gorgeous fish. They run on RO water, remineralized with Chem South American cichlid salt. So that's how you revitalize the water, and it's specific to their kind of water quality they like. They are most closely related to South American fish, cichlids, so I pretty much treat them as such. I can tell you that they do like a fair amount of minerals in their water. Don't skimp on that. They will get all depressed and all of that. I think I missed some RO at one point and did a water change, and they were very upset with that. So they're very tolerant, but make sure their water quality's pretty much on it, and they'll be successful for years. Some of these fish are probably 7 or 8 years old. All right. Aquarium number 2 for today's fish tour is the South American tank. Pretty much what do we just call it? Most of the fish in here are South Americans. It's 125 gallons. There are a combination of fish in here. We have our one-eyed Oscar, who had a bacterial infection, I believe, in his eye at one point. He lost his eye, but he's been around forever. He's probably about 7 or 8 years old. The bala shark and his friend, the chocolate cichlid, who is almost, you can barely see him on the right there, right next to the wood. We'll get a nice close-up. Those guys are about 5 years old or so. And then there's some platinum and Honduran red point cichlids in here, along with the silver dollars. So quite a little smattering of different fish. Once again, bigger fish, some very nice scape rocks and wood in here. I think it looks fairly nice. Lots of open room to swim. But sadly, these guys would tear plants to shreds. I used to try to do imitation plants in my cichlid tanks, but I just kind of gave up and went with something that's a little more decorative. Spend a little extra on the wood and the stones. Get something nice that way. Pretty heavy filtration on this, the FX6 fluval filter underneath. Keeps these guys pretty happy though. Water changes, I don't know, every 3 weeks or so. There's our beautiful chocolate. This guy is amazing. Technically an African cichlid, that way this really can't be 100% South American cichlid tank. But our boy here is doing fantastic. He is probably about 6 years old. Then down here you can just barely see him. He really likes to hide. We'll have to get another shot of this guy. But there's an American gar in the bottom down here. We'll have to get another shot at another time. Some pretty nice stone. Wood. Gives them a nice little natural habitat. I think it looks pretty nice. It's a nice tank to look at. All right, aquarium number 3 is the African cichlid tank aquarium, specifically Lake Malawi. If you're familiar with cichlids, all the African ones come from mostly 3 lakes in Africa. It's Malawi, Tanganyika, and Lake Victoria. And this environment is meant to simulate that. In the real environment, they wouldn't have any plants, but I really, you know, as I mentioned before, really enjoy having plants in my tanks. However, cichlids usually tear them up, but I thought I would try it with the Africans one more time with some bacopa, because I had quite a bit of bacopa and it's fairly durable. You may be saying to yourself, well, that's really cute. I really like your tank, except for there's no bloody fish. You know, and as you go to film, of course, you know, they're all hiding. But there is only 6 juvenile Africans in here. I just haven't got any more fish. I keep meaning to, wanting to. We had a really bad stretch of weather where it was very, very cold here for, I don't know, 2 months straight. And I was pretty nervous about ordering fish online and having them freeze outside. So they're in there. We'll get a little close up here in a second, but I do like the way this tank turned out. I like the rock background, the 3D background on this. I think it really looks sharp. Anyway, we'll go in for a close-up. Maybe the fish will come out and say hi. Alright, here's some close-up shots of our African tank. Some spectacular pieces of wood actually in here. I really enjoy it. There's some nice snails. These are not actual snails. Those are awfully big. They're kind of for decoration. But there's some real snails in here. That is a real snail. And there's a couple little guys over there. Must have nereids, because look at all their eggs. You know, where all my fish are. Uh-oh. I think we have some that are nesting, so cichlids really like to do this little number where they'll dig out little caves. See, this little cave in here, they dig out all that in the front, and then this whole piece in the middle here, there's a little cave they've dug out, and you can see the soil's been piled up in the back over here. And I think they're just chilling out in here. Boy, I tell you, they don't want to come out, but I promise, I swear to God to you, that there are fish in here. But look at how they've piled all that up and created a little hidey hole for themselves. Oh, and you know why? Because they actually did have babies. Look at that right there. One of these fish actually had babies. That's happened to me quite a bit with my African cichlids, where they just have babies in the wild like this. No wonder they're hiding and being protective. There's another one right there, I think. Just saw him scoot by. Ain't that something? Well, I didn't intend to do a cichlid fry baby shot today, but that's what you're getting, because that's what's happened. It's a little hard to say which one he is. It's kind of tiny at this point. But that's super exciting. Hooray! So much for having to buy more African cichlids. I'll just have more in the tank. Anyway, I really like the way this scaped out. It looks pretty good. You'll have to pardon the noise. My beautiful, silly hound dogs over here, Odin and Freya, are making noise. That's okay. Do have some immersed tank plant in this tank. We have some bamboo, and then as you look down the way, I've got philodendron in here. I really am starting to enjoy the way the roots look inside these immersed tanks. I think it gives a very nice natural look to it, plus you get the beautiful plants outside. I do keep a fair amount of plants up in the room as itself. I'm sure you've noticed in some of the videos, but as like most aquarium people, you find that they really like plants as well. I am no exception to that rule. It just goes on and on. One more close-up look. Sadly, we have no fish. We'll have to take another clip when the fish are out. I know I could get them out if I wanted to eat. If I wanted to get them some food, I suppose they might come out. But anyhow, new babies, very exciting. All right, for our final aquarium in the gallery review fish room tour today is the Honduran tank. We call it that because it's all Honduran cichlids in here. I've got the platinum version and the regular Honduran red point cichlid. Great fish. I think they're super pretty. We go in for the close-up here, you'll see that the platinums actually have some blue in their fins, especially their dorsal fins. Once they're in the light just right, you can just catch it. And then the regular Honduran red points are just gorgeous all the way around. They're a fun-looking fish. Cautionary note, they do breed like crazy. So you want to crowd your cichlid tanks just a little bit, right? Now, I'm not advocating that you put too many fish in your tank, but too few will create all kinds of territory issues, and then they will get pretty brutal with anybody that gets close to their nests. So they'll pair off and they will have babies for sure, guaranteed. But if you keep enough of these in here, the babies will eventually be eaten. They kind of feed themselves. I feed them flake food as well, of course. But they will pretty much self-regulate. I counted 2 days ago in this tank, there were 4 breeding pairs. And they'll hide, and I've seen them chase off Oscars. And they don't get a whole lot bigger than this, maybe just a little bit, another ½ inch bigger than the biggest ones you see. But they have no problem chasing fish 8 times their size away from their nests. Very protective, beautiful fish. Got kind of a sandy bottom for them. They like to dig around in the sand, kind of gives them something to do. I think in nature they kind of have a sandy bottom to most of the lakes and rivers that they hang out in South America. They are a South American cichlid. They get the same RO, treated with American cichlid salt as my other South American tanks. But yeah, kind of a different thing. I've got immersed plants in some. This one actually, you can see plants in the background, but they're not in the tank, because much like the rest of my cichlid tanks, it's just not going to happen. But I do have is spider plant up above, and it's draping down below behind the tank, giving it kind of a planted tank effect without really having plants, because they will destroy them. I've tried to put plants. These guys will actually eat them. Not only will they destroy your plants and move them about, but they'll eat them and they'll just be gone by morning. And we'll go in for a little close-up on these guys. They're kind of like the parrots in the way that they, once you're around, they really think that it's going to be time to eat. And so they're grouping around, which I guess is good. This is mostly platinums in here, but you can see some of the regular Honduran red points in here, like in the other 125-gallon tank you saw a few minutes ago. Those are full-grown adults in that tank. These guys are still fairly juvenile. Let's see if we can get in and see their little nests. It's just like any other cichlid, they like to dig these little holes. See how that, I did not create that. That is created by the fish. There's another one over here. There's another one in the back over here. Like I said, 2 days ago I counted 4 nests. They most certainly had babies just all over the place. Today, however, I do not see any babies, which means they probably were actually consumed. Yeah, at least I don't see any today. That doesn't mean that they're not in here, but anyhow, this is a pretty wonderful tank and some pretty wonderful fish. It's another one of those tanks that you can just sit and stare at all day long. Anyhow, this will conclude today's portion of the fish room tour. We'll do one more on our 3-part fish room tour series we're doing. So we'll get that out in the next few days, so you guys have something to look forward to. Please make sure you like, subscribe, add some comments. I'm happy to answer any questions you have, and I like to hear from you guys. Anyhow, everybody take care, and we'll see you again very soon for part 3.
Yeah.